Hi, my name is Chrissy Nizer, and welcome back to Conversations with Chrissy. I'm really excited today to have Kenny Mason with us, one of our district managers here at MDOT MBA. Kenny, welcome.
Well, thanks so much, Chrissy. Excited to be here.
Well, as you know, we've been highlighting some of the great employees we have here at MDOT MBA and some of the great programs that we have. So
Yeah.
our one-stop shop that we like to brag about a little bit and talk about how we offer great government services that aren't traditional MBA services to our customers. We highlighted Veterans Affairs, which is a nice partnership we have at a lot of our branch offices. And today we're going to talk about our birth certificate program,
All right.
which you were a great leader in, and looking forward to hearing about that. But first, maybe if you could tell just a little bit about yourself, how
Sure.
long you've been with MBA and the different roles that you've had during your time here.
Sure. Excited to. So I've been with the Motor Vehicle Administration for about 8.5 years now. Started as a branch manager. And that was at the Westminster location. And so I had a great experience there. I was there for about 3 years. It's known as one of our smaller locations. At the time, seeing about 300 to 400 customers a day. And then from there, transitioned to the Baltimore City location. That location is actually known as one of our larger locations. At the time, seeing about anywhere between 600 to 750 customers within a day. I went from managing about 24 agents at Westminster till about 56 at Baltimore City. So significant jump there, but it was great experience for me. And really was able to not only help a lot of the citizens of Maryland in another environment, but also to just continue to grow and develop myself as a leader within the agency. And so was there for about another 3 years or so. And then after that, got lucky enough to get a position as the district manager, which I currently have been acting in that role for about a year now. So
Great. Well, one of the things I appreciate with you is how you love to develop our employees and help them grow and move forward. So
absolutely.
maybe talk a little bit about what brought you to the MBA. What drew you here 8.5 years ago?
Yeah. And so a couple of things, right? Now, I think prior to the Motor Vehicle Administration, I worked in restaurant management for about 17 years. And so customer service has truly just been a passion of mine for as long as I can remember in the working field. And I think that while that industry allowed me to do a lot of that, I think it's also very important for me to spend time with my family.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have 4 children. And so I think as time progressed, I started to miss a lot of their events at home. And so I think that allowed me to use a lot of my passion to start looking for another industry that I can, be a part of. And so that kind of led me to the Motor Vehicle Administration. And, like you said, I think developing people and really shining a light on folks who are looking to grow and develop themselves is something that is extremely important to me. And so it's been a great experience for me here in the Motor Vehicle Administration.
Well, you do a great job at it. And
Well,
we're so
thank you.
glad that you have joined the team. And actually, a good plug, right? A great place to work here at the MBA.
There we
and
go.
Still have a quality of life. So I love it.
There we go.
So speaking of customer service, I think our birth certificate program is a great example of bringing service right to Maryland residents directly at our MBA branch offices. And one of those things when you first joined, Real ID was a big project that we were working on, right? Trying to get everybody Real ID compliant. Talk a little bit about the challenges you saw with
Yeah. And so, I think that truly going through Real ID was definitely a big project, as you said. And I think us going into just really looking at how can we continue to, lead all the different states, as I think we have for such a significant period of time. I know we went through a lot of creative ways of trying to accommodate this Real ID process. We created a whole entire new processing transaction that allowed us to help customers just update their records, even if they weren't eligible for a renewal of their product. But I think in our, steps towards trying to continue to make those steps towards a one-stop shop, allow for a lot of the creative thinking of this process for the birth certificates, which it's extremely been helpful to a lot of the citizens of Maryland. And I think it's definitely been, one of the factors that's helped us get to where we are with the 91% compliance in Real ID.
91% Real ID compliant. I think it bears repeating, something I'm certainly proud of. Both our employees and our great customers have responded, and
Absolutely.
one of the highest rates in the country. So I'm just really proud of everybody and where we are. And as you said, we were trying to, a few years back, how do we continue to move forward, make it convenient, make it accessible for our customers? We share information, to your point, and I had heard that our colleagues in Virginia were working on a program where they allowed their customers to get birth certificates in the MBA branch. And I thought, really interesting. Let's explore what that takes. And we realized we needed a legislative change. And want to thank our legislature and our Department of Health for really working with us to make that happen. Got the support of the legislature, and the governor signed the bill. And then it became an implementation effort, right? And not a small effort, really, because security involved in birth certificates just as important as driver's licenses. Yeah. That's a identity document that we want to make sure the process works well and that it's really done with the utmost integrity.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head, right? Is that it really took a collaborative effort of a team of folks to really look at how can we, be compliant with the auditing standards within the process, but also try to make it as convenient as possible for the customers that we service, which is our citizens of Maryland, right? And I think that process, it has a lot of movement within it. That process has 2 agents involved just for that one birth certificate that we're printing, and that customer has to go from agent to the second agent and then back to the first agent just to get the completion of that birth certificate. And customers are not used to that kind of movement within our operation, right? And so, communication as well as looking at our business structure and where we would send people, I thought was extremely important and something that we were able to really put in place within Baltimore City when we first rolled this process out.
And you happen to be a branch manager, I think, at the time.
Yeah. So at that time, I was the branch manager of Baltimore City branch, which was the first branch that we actually were rolling this process out. And it was so funny at first because there's a lot of unknown to it, right? The vital records for a lot of the customers that go to that branch, is directly up the street, right? And so we really did not know how, customers would receive this significant movement within the process, as well as, their ability to feel comfortable coming here to get a birth certificate as opposed to going up to the street pretty much where they were used to going and doing that. And so, I think myself and my district manager at the time, which was Paul Taylor, and a lot of the other leaders of our senior management team really kind of went through our branch operations and looked at, where exactly would the best fit for that be? And then even as we thought about the best fit, then how are we going to secure that document, right? And make sure that not many people have access to that critical nature of that document. And then working with our tech support team to develop a program that we can use, and a lot of the different reports and things that are done on the back end. It took, like I said, a collaborative effort of a lot of different folks. But I would tell you, I think that with the success that we had within it, I think we printed about maybe 500 birth certificates within the first year of us actually doing that. And that's 500 birth certificates with not one customer complaint at all. And I think that was, a tribute to the great team I think that we have putting together, but to our commitment to communication, right? And setting that expectation very clearly for the customer, prior to even going through this process, and utilizing all the tools we had available to make sure that it led to a completed transaction of a product.
Mm-hmm. You talk about them moving around the branch office, but think about the fact that prior to that, without that service, they would have had to leave MBA.
Absolutely.
Go down, at least in Baltimore City, there would be an office fairly close by, but that's not true in every jurisdiction.
Absolutely.
And so that back and forth, as opposed to the one-stop shop that they now have.
And then when you think about it, and then it's different for every branch, but not everyone drives, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some folks who have public transportation, and the difficulty of the transportation of getting to different places to just get that one product from the motor vehicle. And so I think a tribute to yourself and the rest of our leadership team to really look at this from a standpoint of how we are best providing that premier customer service, which is our mission, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that process definitely allows us to do that.
Yeah, and a great point. And during COVID, a lot of these local offices weren't open, or were open for very limited services. So it might have been difficult, transportation being a concern, but then just access to the services at the local level was maybe challenging for folks. So that customer gets to walk out with that birth certificate along with their driver's license, which will be mailed to them. But they can use that birth certificate for many other purposes. And we're not charging a fee. I think that's an important point as well.
Correct. I agree.
It's a service really we're offering to our customers, and part of that premier customer service vision that we like to talk about and really appreciate, because it reduces the trips to the MBA as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So maybe, Kenny, you could describe what happens, right? Somebody arrives at the MBA, they don't have their identity document, and they're born in Maryland, importantly. We make them aware that we do have the ability to print their birth certificate, and they can use that for that transaction. Take it away now. Talk about what happens.
So basically, and it will sound like a lot, but it really is not. I think once we've identified that customer has all of their documents that are necessary, right? Because we're only printing birth certificates for customers who are actually performing the transaction. Mm-hmm. So we need to make sure that we properly vet that customer to ensure that once this birth certificate is printed, then we are going to be able to perform their transaction and get them their product, right? And so once we've done that, it's then about providing that customer with the expectation of what this process is and that there is movement within the process. And so the customer will need to be a little patient with this, because the intricacies of auditing within the movement there that is set up. And so once that we have that buy-in from that customer, we're going to provide that customer an application, and they're going to go to Customer Agent 1. Well, Customer Agent 1 will actually perform a search for the customer to identify their birth certificate. Once they've done that, they'll print off what's called an invoice. They'll give that copy of that invoice number to that customer. They'll also check their identification, because there are 3 identification checks within the process. The customer will then take that customer invoice number and go to Customer Agent 2. They'll provide the invoice, and then also that Customer Agent 2 will do a second ID check. Once that second ID check is completed, they'll use that invoice number to actually begin accepting payment for that birth certificate product, which is actually $10. And so once that customer has paid that, we'll print them a receipt, provide them with the receipt and their identification back, and they'll return to Customer Agent 1. And Customer Agent 1 will do that last ID check and verify proof of payment, and then go into the system and actually print their birth certificate for that customer. Once that birth certificate is printed, then we are sending them to the next customer agent in order to get their product printed. So, like I said, I think when you hear it might sound like a lot, but I think it's really just about understanding that, our customers come with the intent to leave with the product, right? And so when you set that expectation in the beginning and have that conversation with them, then we have a process that may allow us to print your birth certificate and will guarantee us to be able to print your product. Most customers are willing and actually very happy to go through whatever the process is that you need to go through in order to get that completed. And so that's pretty much the overall process.
And it's all about that security and integrity of the process. As you said earlier, separate agent issues the birth certificate from the agent who issues your driver's license, maintaining the integrity of both processes.
Absolutely, because if you are actually working within the birth certificate process for that day, you cannot do any driver's licensing transactions at all. And like you said, that's just more separations of duties that are put inside of there, as well as several other things. For instance, the birth certificate paper itself has to be secured in its own printer. And so that is another way to secure that printer that only can be loaded with that birth certificate paper by our managers within our branches, right? And so the agent really doesn't touch the birth certificate paper until they're handing it to the customer, because it's actually been completed. Again, there's as many security measures that we can put in place as possible to just provide security to that document and security to the process itself.
And again, thanks to our partners at Department of Health and Vital Records, who establish all the procedures and help us along the way with the auditing and accounting of everything, awesome. Right? It's been a great partnership. Talk a little bit about the reaction in Baltimore City. How the employees feel about this new project? It was kind of a novel idea, right? I'm just curious the reaction.
Well, I think they were excited in the beginning because it was definitely something different. But I think just curious as well, to see how much traffic would we actually get from it, and who was eligible, and would we be able to actually secure printing of birth certificates that's so new and different for a lot of the agents at the Baltimore City branch location when we first initially rolled this out. And so that unknown and curiosity really led to a lot of eyes and attention just to see how this process would turn out and work out for not just for us to be able to do it, but for the customers to be able to receive it and actually get those products completed that day. Yeah.
That's great. And I know in talking to some of the agents, just really proud of the ability to give that kind of document to customers and allow them to continue on forward.
Yeah. I think, we have a lot of team members that are very passionate about customer service. They truly do care about ensuring that we do everything we can to be that premier customer service agency because, not being a for-profit agency, we get our stripes based off of that premier customer service promise that we deliver, right? And I think that truly our passionate team members truly can really care about that experience that we provide, our customers.
Definitely. And never can say too much. Shout out to all of our wonderful employees for providing premier customer service every day. We could not do it without each and every one of you, and gratitude for all you do on behalf of all of our residents throughout Maryland. So you have a great program. It's working in Baltimore City. The residents are really receptive. A lot of people are interested. How do you then take that model program and move it out to other areas of the state so they have the same benefit they experienced in Baltimore City? Yeah.
So I think the great part is like I said, that the team that we had and the partnership that we had with the Maryland Department of Health, I think allowed us to create a very strong basis, right? And truly looking at the things that we learned from that process, because we've learned a lot and had to make some adjustments to the program itself and things of that nature. And so from those experiences, as I said, we printed about 500 birth certificates within the first year of the birth certificate process. And so we had a lot of experience with that and felt as if now we can take that basis and roll it out to other branches that, may have customers that are really in need of this service, but also can replicate kind of that foundation that we identified in Baltimore City and set up. And so, our next location that we ended up selecting was the Essex branch location. And I think, one, they had a great core value team there that was very passionate and excited about offering this service, excuse me, at their branch location, but also, the customers that they have been seeing regularly that, were having to make return visits because they have not brought in their document of birth certificate, or, did not know how to go get it or where to go get it and things of that nature. And they also did not have a Department of Health very close proximity, almost like, we did in the Baltimore City branch. And so, what I did was actually went over and began taking responsibility as the liaison/trainer for that program based off of it actually being started in Baltimore City. And so we went there and conducted a class of training, which not just myself, but our IT department, as well as Maryland Department of Health representatives came as well. And we kind of sat down and kind of went through and walked them through the process and talked about some of the things that we've learned and found, as well as looked at their branch operation and identify where the best places to set this up at that's be most convenient as possible to process this customer for that transaction. And so through that process, we actually rolled it out, and I think it's almost as equally as successful at Essex branch as it's been in Baltimore City.
That's great. Now we're up to 7 branches, just announced Gaithersburg last week. We are spread out throughout the state and Southern Maryland.
Yeah. Up to 7 branches, and I think almost up to about 3,000 birth certificates printed.
Really exciting.
So it's really, when you think about it, that's 3,000 customers that would have possibly had to go back home and get their birth certificate or go through the process of getting their birth certificate through Maryland Department of Health. And that was all during the time with COVID going on, where, it wasn't as easy to get into those different places based off of what we were all experiencing. And so when you really think about it from that perspective, just not that number, but that number represents a customer's experience. I think it's really, really impactful.
Do you have any individual customer stories, either from Baltimore City or somewhere else that you could share with us? I always love to hear the customer stories about numbers are one thing, to your point, but it's the people behind them that matters.
I can think of several, but I think that one of the main things that we found during this process You would be surprised how many customers do not know their mother's maiden name. There are 5 key points.
And that's part of the birth certificate application,
there's
right?
5 key points within the birth certificate application search that we have to put in. And so that's your name, your first and last, your date of birth, your mom's first name, and your mom's maiden name. If you do not know mom's maiden name, that's going to make it very difficult for us to find the search. And we can only search that customer twice within that day. And then you would have to wait until obviously the next day, right? So I think, again, it really relies on communication. And a lot of times we do that search for a customer and, it comes back and it'll tell you mom's maiden name is incorrect. And we would have to have a conversation with that customer to say, are you sure mom's maiden name is this? Because what you've given us is this, and I can only search one more time. And they'll begin getting on the phone and making phone calls to their cousins and uncles to see if everybody can figure out mom's maiden name, right? But
spellings,
so spellings is definitely difficult. We've seen folks with extremely, extremely long last names. So a lot of different experiences. But again, like I said, 3,000 customers and not one customer complaint. And definitely through that, we've had some situations where, again, the great partnership with the Maryland Department of Health, where we've actually had to call and say, hey, we've done 2 searches for this customer already, but, without the product, this is what their current situation is. And they have, been so gracious enough to tell them, well, come on down to us. And if they can get to us today, we'll get their birth certificate printed. And so, I think, from the outcome of it, I think a great partnership, but also, just one more step to us continuing to service that mission that you've set out for one-stop shop premier customer service agents.
Yeah, it's really pretty amazing when you think about almost 3,000 customers. So just reflect on that. You've been involved from the beginning. You've expanded it. You've helped your fellow managers at the time figure out how to run the program. How does it make you feel to see that great success? We didn't know at the time, right? We didn't know how many people would take advantage of it.
I had no idea, right? But I'll tell you, I'll just go back to initially what I said, right? That for me, customer service has always been not about what you say, but it's about how you make people feel when you say what you say to them, right? And I think that it's one of the things that I've just been so very passionate about, which is really recognizing that what we do changes people's lives. And so when I think at that number of 3,000 and each of those different experiences that each one of those customers may have had, but how we were able to not just provide them with their product, but also do so in a fashion that is much more convenient than it would have been if, we didn't have that process. That truly, makes me feel proud to be a part of a team of folks that truly are living that mission in the day-to-day operation.
Well, Kenny, I am so grateful that you joined me here today to have this conversation. I have no doubt that anybody listening to it now realizes why you moved so quickly up through the organization. You're 8.5 years here. You care so passionately about people. And that's what I love about you. And that's what shines through no matter where or when we have a conversation. Grateful for your work here on this project. That's so important. 3,000 Marylanders. I hope you're as proud of that as we are.
Absolutely.
Just another example of the great work that MBA is doing for a one-stop shop. I'd like to think that our branches are out there conveniently located in communities, access points for individuals to be able to get other government services in addition to their great MBA services that we provide in a very quick and efficient manner. But things like birth certificates, Veterans Affairs, who were here earlier, Department of Natural Resources, many great partners that we'll continue to talk about in the coming months. I always like to say, as being part of the Department of Transportation, if there's a pothole, customers don't really care if it's a county or state road. They just want the pothole fixed so that they can smoothly drive through the road. And I feel that same way about the services we offer.
Absolutely.
Customers care less about what state agency or federal agency or local agency provides the service. They just know that they need that birth certificate to get their real ID. And I'm so proud of all of our employees that have been involved in this wonderful project. And again, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Chrissy.
And thank you all for listening again to Conversations with Chrissy. Looking forward to our conversation continuing next month.